Good morning and welcome back to another episode of This Week with Cheek. Wow, this is our first Monday of our extended learning, and I don't know about you, but I'm bummed. Like, I miss you. I miss or will miss the personalities of each and every one of my students. You know, every one of my classes is special and unique to me. And so I had to kind of make my own classroom here. I've got my whiteboard. I've even got a little blackboard here with a quote and another one over here. And of course, I've got our classroom pigs. Thanos has joined us along with Mike Wazowski and an old friend of mine, the Aloha Pig, because we're all excited about spring break. Now, this is Monday, and so I have been overwhelmed with It's Learning emails. Yes, do not doubt that. I have been overwhelmed with It's Learning emails asking, is there going to be a Monday Motivator? And yes, there is going to be a Monday Motivator. No coronavirus will keep us from a Monday Motivator. Now you might be thinking, oh boy, here it comes. Yes, so you've heard of the dating website farmersonly.com, but did you know that there's actually a mathlyonly.com? Did you know what geometric figure often logs into their mathlyonly.com account? Parallel lines. Yeah, because they never meet. They never run into anybody. They never meet. So they like to go to mathleadsonly.com. Hey, that's your Monday Motivator. I know you're laughing hysterically right now, but it is time to jump into our math lesson. We are talking about special angle relationships. When we left, we had talked about different angle pairs that are created when we have parallel lines cut by transversal. So I want to review that. I've posted a Quizlet with lots of vocabulary terms: acute, obtuse, alternate interior, supplementary angles, all the angle pair relationships that we've talked about that will help you learn those names. But let's look at a couple of examples to make sure that we know how to work these problems. So I'm going to start off basic, and then we'll add to it. So line M and line N are parallel. And we're going to say M is parallel to N. This is parallel, and then our transversal will be line L. So anytime you have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, there are special angle relationships that are formed. If I know those angle relationships, I can determine a missing angle measure. So, for example, let's say this angle is 75 degrees, and I want to know the angle or the measure of this angle. If I understand the angle relationships that are created when parallel lines are cut by transversal, I can determine that angle measure. These two angles are corresponding. They hold the same position or the same location in the top diagram as they do in the bottom diagram. And so this angle measure is 75 degrees. These angles are corresponding. They are congruent. Remember, congruent means they have the same angle measure. Now, because I have this angle measure, I can actually determine every other angle measure in this diagram. So this angle was 75 degrees, and so all the other acute angles are going to be 75 degrees. This is going to be 75, and this is going to be 75. Now, how do we determine what our other angle measure will be? It's obtuse, so it's going to be greater than 90 degrees. Because this is a straight line, we know that that's going to measure 180 degrees. So all I have to do is take 180 and subtract 75. that will give me my missing angle measure. So I'm going to take my calculator. Yep, brought a calculator home. Hopefully you have a calculator. Use your phone. If you don't, we get 105 degrees. Again, once we know that angle measure, we can determine the other obtuse angle measures. This will be 105. This will be 105. This will be 105 degrees. So that's your first example. Let's take a look at one more. All right, so let's say that we have this angle measure and it's 118 degrees. How am I going to find this missing angle measure? Well, this is a linear pair. These two angle measures are adjacent to one another, and so that means they are supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. So again, I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to subtract 118 from 180, and I get 62 degrees. Now, that information helps me fill out the rest of the missing angle measures. All of the acute angles will be 62 degrees. All of the obtuse angles will be 118. And once again, that is how you find a missing angle measure. Now, we're going to add on to that, and this time we're going to try and solve using an equation. Okay, let me give you an example. Erase all this. And let me see what example I have pulled up here. Okay, so we've got this angle measure is 130 degrees, and the corresponding angle 27x minus 5. And so we're going to try and solve. We want to solve for x. Solve for x. Now, because these two angle measures are corresponding, that means they are congruent. And so we can set them equal to one another. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say 27x minus 5 equals 130. If you'll notice, that's a little two-step equation. Just add 5 to both sides. And then divide by 27. I'm going to use my calculator. I've got 135 divided by 27, and we get x equals 5. Now that is the value of x. That does not give me that angle measure. You should know what that angle measure is, because these angles are congruent. Means they should have the same angle measure. But I'm going to plug in 5 for x and see what we get here. So 27 times 5 is going to give me 135. Minus 5 gives me 130 degrees. All right, let's take a look at another example. Those angles were congruent. Let's look at a pair of angles that are supplementary. So we've got 12x minus 2, 18x plus, 18x minus 2. Nope, I had it right the first time. Error policy. So this time, these two angles, this is a linear pair. They're adjacent. They're going to be supplementary. They're going to add up to 180 degrees. So I'm going to take 18x plus 2 and add 12x minus 2, and they should equal 180 degrees. So I'm going to combine like terms. So I've got 18x and 12x, which gives me 30x. And then my positive 2 and my negative 2 give me 0. So it should be 30x equals 180. divide both sides by 30, I know that x equals 6. Now what I want to make sure is that when I plug that back in, that I get the right angle measure. So I'm going to do 18 times 6 plus 2. 18 times 6 is 108 plus 2, so that's 110. And then we're going to plug it in over here. 12 times 6 minus 2. So 12 times 6 minus 2, 70. And these two should add up to 180, and they do. 110 plus 70 gives us 180 degrees. So when you are solving for x, when you're creating an equation, it all depends on whether the two angle pairs are congruent, meaning you set them equal to one another, or they're supplementary. And so you add them together, and they should equal 180 degrees. It just got a little darker in here. Hopefully you can still see me, or maybe it's even a little more clear than it was a minute ago. Hey, we're figuring this out, right? My kids are all sitting here watching me, learning 8th grade math. So my hope is that tomorrow morning, Monday, that you will join me at 10:30. I'm going to put an active Nearpod lesson on, and we'll be able to collaborate through the Nearpod. I'm going to have a draw activity so you can submit the names of different angles and determine a missing angle measure and even solve for x as we continue to learn about this. I'm going to be posting videos each and every day. Hopefully, that is my goal. And we'll have school, and we'll do the best we can. I miss y'all, and hope to see you on Tuesday for another episode of This Week with Cheek.